Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Joe Luca Real Estate Show right here on WNRI 99.9 FM, 1380 on the AM dial. We are here every Tuesday evening from 6 to 7 o'clock p.m. And guess what we talk about? We talk about real estate. And I gear the show towards you, the consumer. Hopefully provide you with valuable information if you want to become a homeowner, you are a homeowner, you're thinking of selling, thinking of buying. We provide a lot of relevant information. I want to thank our sponsors, Compass Title and Escrow. Anthony Betancourt and his crew over there do a great job taking care of our clients, buyers, and sellers, and answering any questions, identifying any potential problems before the problems develop, because in real estate there is never a good surprise. Surprises are always bad, so we try to avoid surprises. We like everything to be copacetic, just move right along and move towards the closing table without any eventualities popping up. Also want to thank Vern Rainville. Vern is a public insurance adjuster. That means he works for you, the property owner, not the insurance company. Vern Rainville, 484-300-8495. That's 484-300-8495. Vern will help you with claims that even if they were a year and a half ago, Vern may be able to help you with those. So just give him a call, Vern Rainville, Public Insurance Adjuster, 484-300-8495. And of course, George Metz and G Metz Moving and Storage. Check them out at gmetzmoving.com. That's G as in George, M as in Michael, E as in Edward, T as in Tom, Z as in Zebra, moving.com. You can get a price for a move and you can schedule a move at that website. That's gmetzmoving.com. All right, folks, so we talk about real estate. Some of the things I want to talk a little bit about this week are why it's still a very vibrant, I think would be a good way to put it, market. You know, there's this time of year, the past few weeks, things, it's kind of like people took their foot off the gas a little bit if you were driving a car. So there are still people buying homes, they're going under contract, new homes are coming on the market, but not at the pace that we had earlier. So things, the offers coming in were a little slower, open houses have been slower, and the number of homes coming on the market at certain price points is also diminished. So we still have a good amount of inventory. We still have a lot of sales activity. The intensity is still strong. It's just not as strong as it was previously in a lot of neighborhoods. I don't even want to say communities or towns and cities, because it's varies from one neighborhood to another neighborhood. So that's where we are right now. Home sales have been increasing, as have been home values, even though interest rates were high. Now interest rates have dropped down a little bit, but so they're not as high as they were before, when we were like well into the 7s and sometimes in the 8s. So today a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, 6.40%. That's a conventional mortgage. And then a 30-year FHA, 5.81, 30-year VA, 5.82. So folks, these are really, good rates, bearing in mind where we've been. And then also historical perspective, folks, that the average rate for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage historically is 8%. So we're still well below that. So it's a good time. My first mortgage, was 9.95, a million years ago. And I have, people that I know who their first mortgages were well into the double digits. Okay. So it's still a great time to buy a home, especially if you're renting. Because if you're renting, you're paying 100% interest. You have nothing to show for that monthly payment in rent. So that being the backdrop for what we're talking about, we're very fortunate this week to have as a guest on the Joe Luca Real Estate Show, Mayor Chris Beauchamp. Mayor, welcome to the Joe Luca Real Estate Show.
Thank you, Joe. It's a pleasure to be here. Appreciate it.
Great. So I want to touch base and give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about some of the things that we talked before we came on the air, what's going on in Woonsocket, and why Woonsocket has a tremendous amount of value for homeowners and home buyers. Maybe you could kind of share a little bit of some inside baseball from the perspective of the mayor's office.
Sure. Thank you. As you were just talking, and I was thinking in my mind about my first mortgage, I believe was 11%. So double-digit mortgages, interest rates, I should say, were the norm way back when. Thankfully, they're not now, even though they're still somewhat higher than we were used to in the past few years. But they're coming down, as you said, and that's a good sign, right? So as far as myself and what the city is looking to do to help people, we continually could talk every day with developers that are coming into the city of Woonsocket looking for commercial real estate and residential stuff too, but mostly for the commercial side of it, our old buildings, our old mills, our old vacant storefronts on Main Street. And I've been encouraged in the 9 months that I've been sitting as mayor, and also last year when I was council president, of the amount of activity and the amount of interest in the city of Woonsocket. And as we were talking earlier, I've met people from various parts of the country, as far as Dallas, Texas, that have been here 2 or 3 times, looking at potentially buying property and investing in the city of Woonsocket. And I'm very encouraged by not only what we've discussed, but their repeat, as they come back repeatedly, not just once, twice, 3 or 4 times. So they're not tire kickers, if you will, right? These are people that are definitely interested, have the experience, have the capital, have all the tools you need to say, listen, we're interested in 269 Main Street, we're interested in this building, right? So I'm very encouraged by it. Some of it's starting to move, but again, being the mayor for 9 months, it's a 2-year job. Sometimes that stuff doesn't happen for 2, 3, 4 years. You start
Sure.
it and then it goes to the next transition, if you will. So I'm hopeful that, come November, I'll be the mayor again and I will be able to finish or bring things over the finish line that we've kind of started. And that's what I look forward to doing.
Excellent, excellent. Now, I know, and I've said this before, as a realtor, I see a lot of value for people buying homes in Woonsocket. If you just go a few miles south, the same home is going to be $100,000 more. And it's not like there's a big sacrifice. Oh, because here you don't get this. You have all the services that surrounding, and in some cases more than some of the surrounding communities.
Correct, and we had talked earlier too about location, right? And
Yeah.
as you know, in real estate, location is the key factor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know this has been where we are, has been a location aspect for many years between Boston, Worcester, Providence.
Yeah.
And these developers that are coming in from Boston area, Newton area, and other parts of the country, they see that now.
Yeah.
And they see that, Woonsocket offers something that if you go a mile over the line,
Yeah.
into Bellingham, Blackstone, Franklin, that type of stuff,
Mhm.
you're paying tremendously more money for a property that you can get in Woonsocket for a good deal.
Yeah.
So that is very encouraging. And, down the road, unfortunately, we just had that mill fire, right?
Right.
20 Privilege Street.
Yep.
And we had people that had put down a down payment on that property and it looked like it was gonna move forward.
Mm-hmm.
But they've quickly pivoted to other areas of the city and they're looking at other properties. So they didn't just say, oh, well, that thing literally went up in flames, unfortunately. They're still here, they're still talking. They're looking at the plazas up on Diamond Hill Road. They're
Mhm.
looking to invest in that.
That's great.
So I have potentially some good news down the road, hopefully, and I've learned in my short time as mayor that you never really say things are happening till it's
done.
till it's done, till
Yeah.
you're over the finish line, right?
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
at the 1 foot yard line for a supermarket and then it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So I've been cautiously optimistic about a lot of things and
Yep.
I still am.
Yeah.
Um,
Now, so what? So you I mean, in the short time you've been in the mayor's seat, you've done a lot. You really have gone out of your way and not just stayed in the comfort zone.
Mhm.
You've worked. I have a saying, it's like you grind. I have a lot of respect for my colleagues and people who are they're out there grinding. Whatever your job is, you just try and push and always make things better and do what you have to do and I think it's been apparent that you've been really doing that and a lot of it too is because it was a short term. You've always got the people that are throwing darts.
Yeah,
You
and
know.
you know that's part of the job, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Joe, like I said, the people, and one of the biggest things that I've seen sitting as mayor is I have a deep appreciation for the people that work at City Hall.
Mhm.
No matter if it's public works, planning, finance, obviously police, fire, public safety.
Yeah.
Because when I was on the council for 12 years plus, I always thought I knew what the mayor did until you sit in the shoes and then
Yeah.
you really understand it. And that's difficult because I don't have a chief of staff. You don't have all these other department heads that other cities and towns have.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so you gotta do a lot of things on your own with conjunction with your departments and your department heads.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mind the hard work,
Yeah.
but you can only be in one place at one time, right?
Right.
So people wanna talk to you, they wanna visit you, they wanna know what Woonsocket can do to help, what
Mhm.
CDBG funds are available, what home funds are available, you
Mhm.
know? So you have to have those meetings and conversations, and not everything pans out,
Right.
but my door has been wide open to anybody and everybody. I was pulling into City Hall this morning and I saw a gentleman kinda like where I go to the driveway in the back of City Hall, and I kinda let him walk across, and I rolled down my window and he started talking to me. And he's a gentleman that's lived in the city, bought a house here, I think he said about 10, 15 years ago, loves the city.
Mm-hmm.
And he just kinda talked to me about why people have a misrepresentation of Woonsocket
Mhm.
until you get here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously, we're in the northern part of the state, and sometimes at the state level, you think they forget about us. But I've made sure that I've opened up relationships with state people,
Mhm.
federal people, and make sure we have conversations of how they can help me
Right.
help the taxpayers in the city of Woonsocket.
Yeah.
And I think that's critical.
Yeah, I agree. One of the things, I remember several years ago, I was at a meeting and the then Lieutenant Governor, now Governor McKee, was speaking to us, and he was talking about how in the Blackstone Valley, we have been experiencing, at least up until that point, a decline in the household income level because people are getting older. And when you reach a certain point, your income isn't going up, it's staying the same or going down.
Mhm.
And what we needed to really do is attract younger people who have income earning capacity that will be increasing.
Mhm.
And I know anecdotally, what I've seen in Woonsocket is there are a lot of folks who are coming here and buying homes who are on the younger side of things, under 50, under 40 years old, buying homes. And I think that bodes well because, of course, if you have vibrant family communities, then you have people that can pay taxes, can take care of their homes, etc.
Sure.
Is that something that is that borne out in the fact you have access to more information than I do?
I think that's borne out to the fact that we've opened ourselves up, right?
Yep.
And, some of the stigma about Woonsocket, the negative stigma, if you will, I kind of let that go in one ear and out the other because we have a lot to offer.
Mhm.
We do have our challenges like anywhere else. And I tend to promote that the glass is half full, not half empty.
Yeah.
And if you have a positive attitude and you're always working to better yourself or better your community, I think that's what the mayor's job is,
Mhm.
right? And I'm truly believe that. I'm not afraid of the hard work, but again, I'm realistic. Right?
Yep.
I know that we have challenges. We have challenges in our homeless population, right?
Mhm.
It's not only citywide, statewide, it's federally, everywhere, right?
Yeah.
The homeless population is a big, big challenge.
Mhm.
And it's because of what happened, 3-4 years ago when the pandemic hit us. People lost everything. Some
Right.
people did. So we're still kind of climbing out of that, if you will.
Mhm.
And as you mentioned when we first got on, the interest rates are dropping.
Yep.
They're not where they were a year and a half ago, which is great. I don't think we'll ever see that, 1%, 1.5% again,
Mm-hmm.
which is probably not the worst thing. I know people were very happy when that was where it's at. But
Right.
that's not realistic either. The government poured a lot of money into helping people
Yep.
stay afloat, if
Yeah.
you will, right? So I know that, when I talk to people, and as a matter of fact, I'll give you a prime example of what I see. I have a neighbor that lives behind me. He's got a young family. He moved here about 3 years ago,
Mhm.
3.5 years ago. And I said, "What brought you to Woonsocket?" He said, "You know what?" He said, I lived in Providence." He said, "and we were paying much higher taxes there."
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "We came to Woonsocket and we looked at various houses throughout the city, and we were pleasantly surprised about how well these neighborhoods were, how great some of these houses were.
Yeah.
And he said, we got a bargain.
Yeah.
And he lives in the north
Absolutely.
end where I live.
Mhm.
And there's great locations in East Woonsocket, there's
Yeah.
great locations in Fairmount, everywhere. We have
Mhm.
very good locations where people can, raise a family.
Yeah.
And to me, that was exciting, and I've heard many stories like that where people have moved out of areas, Franklin, Rentham,
Mhm.
areas where the rent and the cost of living is 10 times what we pay here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm
And
encouraged.
I am too. I mean, you get such a value, in, a colleague of mine, she has a listing right on 4th Avenue in Fairmount. This house is adorable. It's a perfect first-time home buyer's house. It's been all completely done over on the inside. It's a cute yard in the back, and it's just really, really nicely done.
Yep.
And it's under 400,000 now, folks. The median price of a home in Rhode Island is almost 500,000. So here you're getting a house for a family that needs nothing.
Yeah.
For over 100,000 less than the median price of a single-family home.
And one of the other aspects that this individual told me about was the parks. We have a
Yeah.
wealth of great parks.
Yeah,
And-
access to the Blackstone River,
Yep.
boat launches.
Yeah, so we have things that other people would dream about, and always being near the water, as you just said, is always a key, right?
Yeah,
So we're thinking about developing more near the Blackstone. We're
Mhm.
thinking about doing what Pawtucket does with their boat races and
Yeah.
stuff like that. They just had in Pawtucket, which I knew last weekend. I think it drew, I forget the number of people. I don't want to say a number, but it was crazy how busy it was.
Yeah.
And we can do similar things here.
yeah, I totally agree, because I'm big on, just in general, if it's a business, if it's an individual, if it's a municipality, leveraging your assets. And we have a lot of assets here that are people have overlooked.
Mhm.
And you forget about because you live here.
Mhm.
But they're things that other people value because they don't have it.
Yep. And I agree. And we talk about education as a key thing where people want to move, right?
Mhm.
And listen, I know I'm one of 8 kids. And I've
Right.
told this story before. We all went to where we fit in.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Mount St. Charles with a sister. I had a brother that went to LaSalle, another one that went to Hendricken, 2 that went to Woonsocket, one
Mhm.
went to Bishop Feehan. So we kind of went
Yeah.
where we fit in.
Right.
But we all got great education no matter where we went.
Right.
Because you got to apply yourself.
Yeah.
Nothing in this world, if it's worth it, is free. You got to work
Right.
at it, and we did that. And like I said, one of 8 kids. So my father said, "You want to go to Mount St. Charles? Fine. You're going to pay half."
Right.
And back then it was $600
Oh,
when
yeah.
I went. No,
Wow.
it's quite a bit more than that.
Yes, yeah, 20 times more, right?
But I had 2 sisters that went to Woonsocket High School and they loved it.
Yeah.
They had a great education, a great experience.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, you got to be involved as a
Yeah.
parent
Yeah,
or
that's
a
key.
grandparent.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever you are upbringing your family, you have to be involved.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the challenges that talking to representatives from the school department, my wife was a teacher for 23 and a half, 24 years
Mhm.
as a TA. She saw the value of how hard people work at the education department.
Yeah.
But, we gotta change things. We gotta
Right.
do things better, and that
Mhm.
means everybody.
Yeah.
So I look forward to the challenges that we have, but I'm not afraid to combat them and do the best I can.
Yep. Now, one of the things that I've always wondered about, we have a hospital right here in the city, and what's great about hospitals is they bring lots of people in, and the people who work there usually make more than the average wage. You have a lot of physician assistants, you've got the physicians, you've got the nurses, and all.
X-ray physician.
Right, and
assistant,
all
yeah.
these people, this is a great base upon which we could build. I mean, maybe we could, somehow incentivize doctors groups to locate here, and then get like a medical office building development. I know I had mentioned last week with John Wood, but the land on Hamlet Ave.
Mhm.
That I've always wondered what's what.
Like a health hub, right? And create
Yeah, exactly.
a place where, listen, Landmark Medical, it's over 100 and something years it's been here.
Mhm.
It's a tremendous asset.
Yeah.
And I just met with them a couple of weeks ago, and we've had talks about how they can help us and how Woonsocket can help them as a community partner, right?
Mhm.
Because one of the realistic facts here, Joe, is that we have an aging population.
Yeah.
And, people need to be able to get to health care quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some of the people don't have the transportation that they one time had because of their health concerns and whatever. thank God we have Landmark Medical, and I
Yeah.
talk to the mayor in Pawtucket quite often.
Yep.
And that was a drastic hurt for them when they lost their hospital.
Yeah.
It benefited us because I think some of the people come here for their treatment and
Yep.
and whatnot. But having Landmark as a partner with me in the city of Woonsocket and with us, I should say, is critical. And I've talked to them about how they can help us.
Yeah.
And you know, we used to have, they were for a nonprofit hospital, then they went nonprofit, right?
Yep.
And you know, they don't pay a pilot payment in lieu of taxes now, but they're willing to do something to help us.
Mm-hmm.
And we gave them a list of a wish list, if you will, of
Right.
public safety stuff that maybe they could help us with.
Yep.
Police car, fire engine,
Mm-hmm.
flock cameras, whatever. And they took that list and we're gonna have conversations in the near future of
Mhm.
what they can help us with, and that's how you work with people, right?
Yeah.
The pilot program is not in effect anymore, and I think their corporate company out in California is like, we wanna be a partner, what can we do to help?
Yep.
It's just a difference, right?
Yeah.
A donation for something towards public safety.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we'll get there.
Yeah.
Because I've had great conversations with them. And again, my main mantra as sitting as the mayor is to make sure I engage with everybody,
Yeah.
good, bad, or indifferent. And make sure that we can have people know that City Hall is open to do business with anybody.
Mhm.
And just because we may not agree today, doesn't mean tomorrow we can't have a continued conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's important. You know, you want to have that dialogue. You want to be able to go back and forth with, you know, with whomever it may be. And I tell everybody this, and I've been saying it for years on this show, folks, as citizens, you need to be paying attention to what's going on at the municipal, state, and federal level and become engaged. Don't just complain. I mean, a lot of times you were on the city council, and how many times did constituents come in and talk about issues? I would imagine hardly ever. You get a couple of active people, but
Mhm.
there are not enough people come in and really talk about things. And I think it's so important to engage with your representatives to just communicate.
And and people on the council, listen, it's a part-time job
Mm-hmm.
and it's a lot of work at times, right?
Oh, yeah.
If you've got a full-time job as like, I'll use for instance Scott McGee, who's in the real estate
Yep.
business like yourself. I mean, that's a full-time job.
Yeah.
You got commitments at night, showings on weekends,
Yeah.
and you're busy.
Yeah.
So to get involved in the city council in Woonsocket, and listen, when I got involved, I'm like, I'm gonna give a shot because I think I wanna give back to the community. That
Yeah.
was my thinking, right?
Yep.
I've been very fortunate in my life. I've been very lucky. My parents gave us everything we kinda needed.
Mm-hmm.
And if we wanted something else that was above their means, we had to work for it. We had to
Yeah.
go get jobs. We had to go do paper routes, cut grass, whatever,
Mhm.
right? But I talk to Scott often, and we talk about how much work it is, and people don't realize that you're on call all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't mind it because I'm not going anywhere. I've been in
Mhm.
Woonsocket 65 years. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So I open that door, and I really look forward to people's conversations. And it's one of the things I got chastised by my wife and some of my family members because I give out my cell phone number.
Oh, yeah.
And to me, that's who I am.
Right.
You want to get a hold of me, call me.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm in a meeting or if I'm busy, just leave your name and number, and I'll get back to you. And I've done that because people feel sometimes when they get a call, City Hall, you got to go through 3 or 4 prompts to get to who you want. They lose
Mhm.
interest.
Right.
Or if they don't get answered right away, then I'll call them back.
Yeah.
So I've tried to change that kind of dynamic, and it's not for everybody. Some people don't want to give out their cell phones. I get it.
Yeah.
But to me, it's like a realtor, right?
Yeah.
You give out your cell phone because
That's
you want to talk to
exactly.
people.
I want that. All right. I
right?
want the phone to ring. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've done that. It's been good.
Mhm.
And you know what? I'll continue to do it.
Good. That's it. Folks, and I have to say, I mean, the mayor, he's very accessible. Sometimes you try to get, politicians on the phone, and it's kind of like whack-a-mole, trying to get them to pick up the phone or respond or do something like that. I have to say, that the mayor did a really good job, or made him very, very accessible. And I'd imagine that probably, 12 years on the city council, that helped too, because, you've got to, put yourself out there for that as well.
It was, and I learned from people when I first got on the council, Joe. It was like a learning curve, right? Like
Yeah.
when anybody knew, with anything that you do new,
Mm-hmm.
there's no kind of guideline booklet that tells you what to do,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But the big thing is I learned to listen, right?
Mhm.
And my patience is going much more tolerable. I much more listen to people instead of to react what they say. I listen first.
Mhm.
And you know the whole saying, that's why you got two ears, right? And
Right,
one mouth,
yeah.
right? So I've learned that, you know what, you're not always going to agree with people. There are some people that no matter what you say, they're just not hearing you, and that's
Mhm.
fine. That's part of the deal. But treat people with respect, you get it back. And I think that's the way I'm going to handle things moving forward. I've enjoyed my time on the council when I was on the council, but now I'm in a different seat, and
Mhm.
it's much more responsibility.
Yeah.
But again, Chris Beauchamp doesn't do anything by himself.
Mhm.
It's the department heads, like public safety, right?
Mhm.
Every day I learn about what public safety does and how they do it. I don't tell them how to be a fireman or tell them how to be a policeman. That's their
Mhm.
job,
Yeah.
right? Kind of similar to like they wouldn't tell me how to build a road or do
Right.
asphalt paving because that was my gig for 40 plus years.
Yeah.
So you kind of stick to your lane sometimes.
Yeah.
But again, I value everybody's input and we'll continue to do that.
Yep. Excellent. Excellent. Then now you mentioned public safety. You know, I know I have friends that are on the job in Woonsocket, and you know, these guys are just really dedicated to, you know, what they do, and you know, it's especially in what you see a lot of times on the news, the national news, what's going on with, you know, the declining respect for police officers. It's got to be a challenge to encourage people to become a police officer.
It certainly is, and you know, I don't concentrate so much on the national politics. I'm trying to just do what I can to help
Yeah.
people in Woonsocket, right?
Yep.
But you see it, you hear it, obviously. But I'll tell you a quick story. I coached basketball at the Woonsocket High School for 12 years,
Mhm.
freshman team. I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do it this past year, and one of the kids that was in the 8th grade coming into 9th grade said, "Coach, we need you to coach." And I said, "Well, all right, I'll do it, but we can only practice from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. That's the only time I got." And he's like, "No." But I make that point because I had a young man about 6 or 7, 8 years ago,
Yep.
freshman. He is now a police officer in the city of Woonsocket.
Oh, that's great.
African American, young kid. He was kind of a little bit on the wild side, but not too bad.
Mhm.
And now I saw him as a policeman, and it brought a lot of pride to me that
Yeah.
I had a little part in hopefully helping him shape a little
Exactly,
bit
yeah.
as a coach.
Yep.
And then he did well in school. He just figured it out that, you know what, if I want something, I got to work for it.
Yeah.
And now he's on the city police force, and I love to see him. I talk to him every once in a while when I
Mhm.
see him, and it just, you know, that type of stuff makes you feel good.
Yeah.
And those are the things that, as a councilman or as the mayor, you try to just do your little part to get somebody in the next place.
Yeah.
And it seemed to have worked with him.
Yeah. And you know,
Fortunately.
and that, you know, is, you know, part of being a real estate guy. You know, everything is quality of life. It's when people are looking to relocate to a different community, a different city or town. They want to, you know, be assured that their family is going to be safe, that there, you know, there are adequate city services. And, you know, one thing I think that's very apparent when you drive through the city of Woonsocket is there is a very strong presence of you know, police and fire stations all around.
Mhm.
So that's all very well represented to someone passing through the city.
It definitely is, and as you mentioned, public safety, you know, we are now getting we had a study done, and we have a consultant that's putting a public safety complex together.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna build a new police station with 2 new fire stations. And it's gonna take another 2 years to really get it from start to finish, but
Yep.
we're in the process of putting a bid together
Mhm.
with this consultant, figuring out our spatial needs and all that type of stuff. And you know what, I am happy that this is happening. I mean, sometimes things take forever.
Right.
I hear my former colleague on the council, John Brian, say things happen at a glacial pace in politics, right?
Yeah.
So, and I hear that, and I chuckle a little bit because when I first got on the council in 2007, we were talking about building a new water treatment plant.
Yeah.
And it just got done like,
Yeah.
2 years ago.
Right.
Right. So you're talking 17, almost 18 years later.
Right.
It's finally done, and sometimes that's what happens.
And that, you know, that's the thing. It's like, you know, a democratic government, you know, the sausage making, it can be ugly and it can take a long time. I mean, I was president of the Rhode Island Association of Realtors, so it's kind of like politics only in an insulated group. And I'll hear input, quote unquote, from my colleague. Well, we should do this, they should do that, they should do that. And it's like, even if what you're saying is 100% accurate, it's not a dictatorship. You can't just wave a wand and make it so. No, we have to go to the appropriate committee. They have to discuss it and vote on it. Then it has to be approved by the board of directors. Then it has to be voted on by the membership. And that's what happens in real life.
It's a process,
It's
right?
a process.
You can't just wave a wand and think it happens. Like, this public safety complex is gonna be, and again, you talk about public safety and why people wanna stay here. We're building a new public safety complex for that young gentleman I talked about earlier,
Yeah,
right?
yep.
He's gonna say, listen, I wanna stay in Woonsocket. Not only is it my home, he's from Woonsocket, but now he sees we're investing in a new public safety complex.
Yeah.
I mean, those two fire stations that we're replacing, in 1926 they were built.
Yeah.
I mean, they're so inadequate for today's public safety realm that it's amazing we're still there.
Yep.
But you gotta come up with a plan. Obviously, everything costs money. You gotta figure out the financial aspect of it. And you gotta put a building committee together and have people kinda look at it.
Yep.
Have community input, obviously. And we'll get there, but again, it may happen 2 to 3 years from now, but it's gonna happen. And it's vital that those things happen. Look at the middle school we built. Right?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, that took forever too, but,
Right.
the old middle school, as we mentioned, real estate, the Goldman Group that bought the old middle school, they are, I think, gonna be starting erecting fence up either this week or next week, and closing the whole facility, and then they're gonna start on the asbestos, removal.
Yep.
So that project's finally seeing some life after
That's
2 years,
awesome.
2.5 years being dormant.
Good. Now, the new public safety complex, what is the location? Where is that going to be?
It's gonna be at Boulay Field where the softball field is. We own the land. We do have to purchase a small restaurant that was in front, the Castle Restaurant.
Yep.
Which will be, we are working on doing now.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're gonna move the softball field to a different park, possibly Vernon Park.
Okay.
So we're looking at doing that. And we're gonna get their input. Like, I'm going to Vernon Park tonight. They got a softball championship for some kind of league.
Yep.
So when I leave here, I'm going there, and we're gonna talk about it. You know,
Yeah.
we need their input, obviously.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a dramatic change. But the reason why the public safety complex, we picked that spot with, the council's approval, is that it's centrally located.
Yeah.
It's in the middle of the city, which
Yep.
is vital, right? Some people thought about All Saints as a possible public safety complex. I didn't think it was the best place, but,
Yeah.
we weighed all the options, pros and cons, and we finally got a spot, and this is where we're gonna go. So I think, I'm very excited about that down the road. I know public safety people are. Gino Gillette, Director of Public Safety, the Fire Chief, Police Chief. I weigh all their input and advice, and this is what we're gonna do.
Good. Now, so the All Saints is that been slotted for redevelopment, or what's going to happen there?
We've had a couple of people that gave us some bids, housing with some commercial aspect. We're looking to put something on the docket in September, for a zone change possibly to help these people.
Yep.
And I think that's moving forward. So I see some, light at the end of the tunnel of that property also.
And that'll be great. I mean, hopefully it gets redeveloped for residential housing, because that would be, just a great value for that neighborhood. It'll help everyone over there.
The housing crisis has affected Woonsocket also. I mean, I know it's statewide and nationwide, right? We have housing prospects. NeighborWorks is building affordable housing over near River Falls.
Yep.
They're 73 units are coming in there. They're well on their way into construction. The Cornstein building, we have a developer that's gutted it, kind of did some framing. That's moving forward. It was a little bit of a stalemate for a little bit, but now I understand it's moving forward. So when you have housing on Main Street, which
Right.
we haven't seen in, I don't think, in my lifetime.
Right, yeah.
I mean, people are walking to work or
Yeah.
walking to a restaurant where they live. That's a game changer, right?
That's huge. It's huge. I mean, a lot of the most famous cities in the world, especially in Europe, that's what they do. They've got, businesses on the first floor. They've got apartments or condos upstairs, and, you can walk to all of your daily needs. You don't need a car. And that's one of the key things to reducing traffic, is not needing a car.
Sure,
You
sure.
know?
I'm excited. There are, You know, I look out my window every day on the fourth floor and I see the old hospital trust building.
Right,
So
yeah.
we have people that are constantly talking about that,
Mhm.
and you know, one of the things that kind of gets me not agitated but a little frustrated, I guess is the word, is
Mhm.
you know, things take time.
Yeah.
And you wanna really, you know, instead of kicking things down the road a little bit, you wanna see them done, right?
Right.
Uh, it's not procrastination on anybody's part. It's just things take time,
Yeah.
as you said earlier.
Yeah.
There's a process,
Mhm.
and you got to go through that. They got to make sure that their investment
Mhm.
is going to be worthwhile for them.
Yep.
To invest millions of dollars, between 20, 30, 40 million dollars.
Right.
They want to make sure that you know they're in business to make money. They're
Exactly.
not in business to lose. So
Yep.
you got to dot the i's and cross the t's, and we got to help them where we can.
Mhm.
You know, we have TSAs, tax stabilization agreements,
Yep.
right? And I'm smart enough to know that you can't give away the store, but
Mhm.
if you want to incentivize people to come here, you got to give them something.
Right.
And that's been a difficult conversation, I think, in the last half a dozen years or so, where you want to help them, but you can't give away too much.
Yeah.
So there's a balance,
Mhm.
right? And I've had conversations, and my new planning director, John Paglarini, who's also the tax assessor,
Mhm.
has been doing a great job in bringing in people, and we've been realistic that we think we can help, but you're not talking 12, 15, 20-year tax agreements,
Right, right.
We just can't afford that.
Yeah, just something to prime the pump.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
And so I'm encouraged by that, and we've had several developers that we're working with now that I think we're close,
Mhm.
and we're gonna get there.
Good. Now, you know, you mentioned earlier, like, everything takes money. Do you, I think I know the answer to this question, which is why I'm asking it. Do you leverage the opportunity for grants? You have like grant writing and,
We do all the time, and we have a great grant writer that just came on board about 2 months ago.
Mhm.
We had a girl there doing that job before. Unfortunately, she had an illness and had to move away. But you know, this is what I talk about people. That individual that had an illness,
right.
we had to put a grant application in about 10 days ago. It was a deadline, $8 million, $7 million grant. She worked from home on a computer with this illness to help us get over the finish line, because
Wow.
she was one of the only people that had access to the computer to get the grant uploaded.
Yeah.
Right? There's certain parameters that you need to have. And
Yeah.
She was the only one.
Wow,
So
that's loyalty, yeah.
we called her, and you know, we hired her for a day, if you
Mhm.
will, right?
Right.
Just so she could upload that stuff. And it was at the 11th hour.
Yeah.
And she did it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was amazed. Not only was she so dedicated to do that because she loved her job being from before,
Mhm.
but her illness has prevented her from coming to the office.
Yep.
And obviously, we want to see her get well. But that's the type of people we have at City Hall.
Yeah.
People like that say, you know what, I'm going to help you out. I'll do what I can to get this over the finish line. And we got the application in. We haven't heard yet.
Mhm.
But to me, I mean, that just lights up your day when you hear
Oh
stuff
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, those are the unsung heroes that,
Yeah.
you know, their efforts to go a little bit above and beyond can benefit potentially so many people.
And you would never know that unless you're sitting there kind of
Yeah.
in the weeds with this, right?
Right,
Like
right.
if I was a council person, yeah, maybe somebody would tell me that. but
Right.
I saw it and I was like, you're telling me she did what?
Yeah.
So I was very grateful, and you know, to his credit, the interim planning director John Paglarini
Mhm.
kind of initiated that conversation once he found out she was the only one
Mhm.
who could get us over the finish line, if you
Yep.
will. So people like that, I mean, deserve a lot of credit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people like that at City Hall.
Yep. Now, what would you say is, I guess, like the biggest challenge, and again, within the confines of real estate and business, you know, residential and commercial real estate, the biggest challenge that the city has that's not a misperception of the city?
So, a challenge that I see is that we have a lot of vacant buildings,
Mhm.
right? And we'll take Walnut Hill Plaza, for
Mhm.
instance,
Yep.
right? I think the vacancy rate is over 50%, 52, 54%. And it was a company that owned that. I think they were down in Florida.
Mhm.
And you know, so they're not here every day. They got
Yeah.
somebody that represents them if we need to talk to them. That's a challenge that, you know, I want to see those plazas back to what they were way
Right.
back when.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had conversations with several developers that are looking to possibly invest in that plaza.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking, $8 to $12 million investment plus the purchase price, right? And these people are like, we're ready to sell.
Mm-hmm.
These people are ready to buy, and I think this is going to be a great thing for the city of Woonsocket when we see that plaza rejuvenate again.
Right.
New paving, new landscape,
Mhm.
facades all look the same.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to happen because, John Paglarini and the planning department have been working very hard, and you follow up.
Yeah.
The squeaky wheel gets the grease.
That's
as they
right.
say, right?
Yeah.
So you don't just wait for their call. You call them and say,
Mhm.
we haven't talked in 2 weeks. What's going on? We're still there. We're still
Yeah.
here. What can we do to help? And to me, that's what I push as a mayor. That, call them back.
Mhm.
I know you talked to them last week. Call them back. Let's see what's happening. Maybe they need something else from us. We don't know.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing with the middle school. And that was bought 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and sat dormant.
Yep.
And they have a TSA, Joe, that ends in October of this year.
Oh wow.
So the TSAs are meant that you got to do something.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah.
Right?
You're right.
We're giving you something that means
Fish or
you're
cut bait. Exactly.
So now it's a month away, and that
Yeah.
thing's going to end.
Yeah.
So I just said to my planning department, listen, call them up. We cannot, let this linger like this anymore.
Yeah.
And we met, and in fact, the council president, John Ward, and I took a tour of the middle school a couple of months ago
Mhm.
with the developer. He told us of his plans, and I kind of asked pointed questions like, this is not a maybe, right? This is
Right.
happening, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm holding you to your word here because, you've done nothing with the building for 2 years.
Mhm.
I can't let the residents that live around that live like this for
Yeah.
another year.
Right.
It's not fair to them,
No.
right?
Exactly.
So it's going to happen. It's going to take a little bit more time, and
Mm-hmm.
if I'm the mayor, I hope to see that done through in the next couple of years. But I'm very happy that it's going to happen because it's a place where the middle school. It's a big complex,
Mhm.
and you have some homeless situations in there sometimes, and
Right.
people are getting into it. We don't want to see anybody get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So now that we're closing that deal, and it's going to happen.
Now, the city of Woonsocket has, when it comes to like workforce housing, affordable housing, the city of Woonsocket has more than it
We're
needs to
third
have.
in the state.
Right, as required by the state. Because of that, are there things that can be done? And I don't know the answer to this question. Things that can be done from the political side of things with your office and the city council to entice developers, builders of housing that's a little bit higher up. I know we've got a couple. I've sold houses in some of the new developments that we have,
Yep.
Oak Grove and right over here on Diamond Hill Road. Those are great. I mean, but to do something like
A mixed rent use, right?
Or-
Not
or
just
the-
affordable,
or
right?
no, not affordable. Just
No.
like not affordable at all. We
No.
have plenty of affordable in Woonsocket. So
No.
I mean, if we just did straight up fair market value developments, because Kamala Harris has this thing. She's $25,000 credit, for first time home buyers. Listen, we don't need more buyers. We need more builders. Take that $25,000 credit,
Mhm.
give it to a developer for each unit he puts on the market, and we'll see houses come on the market.
Sure. And I agree with you. I mean, we're at 15.45%. I think we're third in the state.
Yep.
And the 10% law, right?
Right.
Of affordable housing. We should, and I've had this talk with the governor, that we should be giving more money because we're over it by
Yeah.
50%, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And communities that are well under the 10%, we're talking there's some communities that are 1% or less. And you gotta do your fair part too.
No.
right?
No. Yeah. I know. Yeah. Exactly.
So
Yep.
we should be getting more money because we're over it, but some of these developers are talking about that. And,
Right.
Where they're gonna have some commercial space on the bottom and then, market rate stuff, right?
Mhm.
And that's what I wanna see on Main Street. And I
Yep.
think it's a doable option. We gotta help them a little bit with the TSA.
Right.
But if we give you the TSA, you're not affordable housing, your market rate, right?
Right.
We start off at 12, 1,300, and you get to 15, and then maybe over 2,000. Where
Yep.
you're getting people at the higher end or professionals that
Mhm.
want to be somewhere they can afford and have a nice place.
Yeah.
So, on Federal Street, the OCYO building,
Mhm.
something like that.
Yeah.
Mason Temple. Right?
Yep.
The YMCA is for sale, and they're selling the Y by itself and the pool by itself. So hopefully something happens with some development there.
Mm-hmm.
Which I wanted to make sure the wide pool got back into being a wide pool, and I'm not giving up hope on that yet,
Right.
but it's been a challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. I cannot imagine the challenges with something like that. Good grief.
You know, it's 1901, and I used to swim in the pool that was in the Y building, not the new pool.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, going with my grandfather, and I have many people that have emailed me, called me, elderly people that they go there for exercise.
Yeah.
Now they got to go to Lincoln or Smithfield or Hockomock in Massachusetts, in North Attleboro, I believe. And you know what? That was their home. That's where they went. So it was devastating that closed down.
Mm-hmm.
But like anything else, they were in business to survive, and they weren't surviving. And had a board that said enough is enough. But I'm not losing hope on it. We did have some fundraisers to raise a little bit of money. The city did kick in money to keep it going for January and February and March. And I thank the council for that, because we had swim programs from Mount and other programs that were using it.
Right.
And we weren't going to kick them out in the middle of their season, right?
Yeah.
So they did that, and that was appreciative. I still think there is a pathway to have that wide pool back somewhat in Woonsocket's hands somehow, some way, and I'm not giving up hope.
Yeah. I wonder if there's if there is kind of if there's an opportunity for some type of a mixed ownership, like maybe have Mount take part of it so they can have access for their swim team and whatnot, and so they maybe cover some of the expense, and then the city has some. And
I think there is, Joe, and I had a long conversation finally with CVS.
Yeah.
And the Goldsteins that started CVS,
Yeah.
they were from Woonsocket.
yeah,
Right?
I know. Yeah.
So the Goldstein Community Pool, right?
Yeah.
And had their naming rights on there. So I'm trying to pull out all the stops. I don't know if
Yeah.
I'm going to be successful, but again, it goes to the conversations.
Right.
And you're not telling people what they got to do. You're asking.
Yeah.
You're asking for support, right? And that's the difference between getting something over the finish line and you're hitting people not with a sledgehammer. You're putting on an olive branch. Right?
Yeah.
And that's the way I tend to do things.
I think it's what's important too, and what has become apparent in this conversation is that you think outside the box, and a lot of the best resolutions to what can appear to be intractable problems, or when people take a step back and have an approach to solve the problem outside of the box of normal, what people would normally do in a given situation like that.
And I learned that through, I was in the asphalt paving business. I started on the bottom. I was on the asphalt crew, worked my way up to a foreman, then a superintendent, and then I became an estimator. But as a superintendent running asphalt paving jobs, you gotta pivot sometimes, right? It rains. You didn't think it was going to rain. The forecast said no, it wasn't going to rain till 3 o'clock, and it rains at 10. Now you got asphalt on the way, so you gotta adjust. You gotta modify, and it taught me to kind of do things on the fly sometimes, right? And that's what being a mayor is. Sometimes you think today everything is rosy, and then tomorrow, no, we dropped out. We're not coming to buy the middle school or whatever.
Right.
So it's a challenge, but again, I'm not afraid of the challenges. As long as we work together, communicate. I know the city council controls the budget and controls the money, right?
Right.
My door has been very accessible to any and all of them, and even Council President Ward, who's my opponent in the mayor's race. We talk several times a week, and we should talk that way, because we still got to do city business, right? He's the council president, I'm the mayor. We need to do city business despite being opponents for a mayor's seat. We still got to do business to November. So I've pressed that upon him, and he's been good in that way.
Yeah.
But I got to continue to do that because I think it's important.
Yeah, no, I agree that is important, because again, you're going to put, each of you have to put the city and the city's residents first.
Yep.
Because you're representing them. What would, you have the unique position that you were on the city council for a long period of time, and then you were thrust into the mayor's office. What was the biggest surprise, not political stuff, but the biggest surprise as far as like, oh my, your eyes opened wide, and it's like, I didn't know.
Time constraints.
Yeah.
Like, again, you don't have the staff that other people have, other communities have, because they can afford more staff, right? So, I say it to my wife all the time. She's like, are we gonna see each other tonight? Are we going out to dinner tonight? I'm like, no, I got 3 other things to go to, because it's important to them that they see me or somebody from City Hall, right?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you don't have a chief of staff, you don't have somebody that can do that.
Mhm.
And I hope moving forward, you know, whatever city council is there, and if I'm lucky enough to be mayor, that we have those conversations about, because people get frustrated when they don't get things quickly.
Yeah.
And I mean by at City Hall. So if you don't have a planning department that has, you know, people that can get you things you need, or you don't have the staff,
Mhm.
it takes time.
Mhm.
People are doing 4 or 5 jobs, right?
Right.
So people get impatient sometimes because they're in business. They want,
Right.
they're losing money.
Mhm.
We get a building official, right? And we have an assistant building official. He's leaving from a greener pasture.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, I've talked to him, but I can't offer him the money that he's getting somewhere else.
Right.
And it's just not a reality. It's,
Mhm.
and even if the council agreed to it, it's tough.
Yeah.
But imagine you losing your building official, your assistant building official, and your building official.
Yeah.
Now things stop, Joe.
Yeah.
Like, things don't get inspected, plans don't get looked
Yeah.
at. So I'm in that kind of realm every day.
And right, and that's the type of thing too. I mean, like, you know, I remember several years ago when the city of Providence was in it was a mess down there. People were retiring, and there was no one there to review, like no one there to review plans.
They had to go outside to a third party.
Right.
And you're at their whim when they can come in.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had that with plumbing inspectors
Yeah.
and electrical inspectors, right? We had to hire outside people.
Mhm.
They had their own full-time job, and they did
Yeah.
1 day a week or one
Right.
day every 2 weeks. A business owner that's spending millions of dollars needs this stuff looked at as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Right? Time is money, as you
Yeah.
know.
Yep.
So that's a big challenge, but I've just learned to, you know, I get up early, I come in early, I stay late, and
Mhm.
do what you gotta do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's something that's very illustrative, you know, because, you know, the average citizen doesn't realize how you're getting pulled in so many different directions in the best of times. And then when you have little things that pop up like, oh, somebody's retiring and now there's a vacancy there and you have to hire it and then you've got to cover while they, and you have multiple situations like that, you know, it's it you know, can
The-
be a kick in the shins.
The most important asset that I have at City Hall is the people. I
Yeah.
said this at a church event that I went to on Sunday, and I said, it's not the equipment, it's not the plants, it's not
Mhm.
the water, it's the people.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've learned that through the years of sometimes the school of hard knocks.
Yep.
Like, you yell at people, they're not gonna go through a wall for you. They're
Right.
gonna kinda avoid you.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
if you treat people the way you want to be treated, and that's what I try to do every day at City Hall.
Yep.
Talk to people, you know, understand what their needs are. How can I help you? Not
Mhm.
you're gonna do this because I'm the mayor. I don't talk to anybody like that because that's not the way you get things done.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, you know, I've learned through some hard lessons through my career
Mm-hmm.
that people will go through a wall for you if you treat them with respect.
Yeah.
But if you kind of, you know, put a sledgehammer on them, they're
Yeah.
like, I'll see you later. I'm done at 3:30.
Right.
Right?
Yep. Yep.
So-
Exactly. Now we're actually coming up to the end of the show, but do you have any events, any fundraisers, coffee ends, things like that, steak fries that you're going to be
So
lining up?
I have a Facebook page, and tomorrow night we're having a kind of a town hall open meeting, if you will. If
Mhm.
anybody would like to come, we're at 2 Monument Square. I invite anybody and everybody to come and ask questions. If I don't have the answers tomorrow night, I'll get them for you.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a fundraiser coming up in October, but I'll put that on Facebook. And my campaign staff is very energetic.
Mm-hmm.
We're at 2 Monument Square, right across from the Stadium Theater, which we didn't even mention the Stadium Theater, which
Yep.
is
That's another asset. that
probably
needs
the
to be-
biggest economic driver we have.
Yeah.
And I plan to do the drop-off area, hopefully
Mhm.
if I'm elected, continue that conversation.
Yep.
But again, Chris Beauchamp, Mayor Chris Beauchamp, and my Facebook page, come on it, say hello, and let me know if you need anything, and we'll be glad to help you. Tomorrow night, 6:30, 2 Monument Square, open town hall meeting.
Awesome. All right, everyone. I want to thank you very much for tuning into the Joe Luca Real Estate Show. I want to thank Mayor Chris Beauchamp for coming to spend some time with us today. We will be back next week, next Tuesday, same bat time, same bat channel, and we'll see you then. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you,
That was
Mayor.
great. I appreciate it.
My
I'm
pleasure.
glad to come back another time.
Yeah,